Hi, everyone. It's Evelyn Ackah from the Ask Canada Immigration Lawyer podcast. I am so excited today because I have one of my favorite clients joining us for our podcast to talk to you about what it's like being a corporate client of Ackah Business Immigration Law. I really want to thank you so much, Garth Froese, for being with us today. Garth is the president and CEO of Pacific. Let me get it right, Pacific East Research Corporation, and he's based in BC, and they have US operations as well. Welcome, Garth, to the show.
Well, thanks so much, Evelyn, for having this chat together. This is really meaningful.
I appreciate it. And I think every conversation you and I have is meaningful. Like I either I'm laughing a lot or I'm learning a lot. It's one of the things I really appreciate about you. Just to give people an overview about what Pacific East Research Corp does, can you tell us a little bit about what the business does?
Sure. Pacific East is a data management company. It accesses information on people for the sake of providing contact information for corporations in the U.S. and also for protecting people from fraud and giving correct identity information for all kinds of industry sectors, from healthcare to government to law enforcement, nonprofits, all kinds of organizations.
That is so interesting. What an interesting area to get into. Um, and I know you've done a lot of different things in your career, very illustrious, successful career. How did you fall into this business? Which road did you take that led you here?
Interesting. I was helping out some companies for several years who needed some maybe succession planning or some guidance in regards to some investments where they should spend their time and money. And and then a couple owners at that time asked if I would take a look at this company. And at that time, it was basically a telephone book, a white pages type automated sort of address phone book company. And then as I was taking a look at it and seeing some of the technology that was coming on stream back in 2007,
Mm.
I began to look at it and think, you know what, we can expand this into a lot of different areas. And so started in October 2007, and with a couple other guys in the company, we bought it in 2017.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So I know that you also expanded or you tried to actually enter the United States in 2012, I think it was, as a Canadian, and you were trying to get a work visa. Was this to work for the Pacific company on the US side at the time?
Well, we already had a company in the US. By that time, I'd started a company in the US, Pacific East Research Inc., in
Hmm.
2009. And so I was just traveling back and forth, just having meetings. And for 2 years, just traveled all the time to rebuild the company into a different direction. In that May day in 2012, I went across the border again to catch a flight from Seattle to another state where we're
Hmm.
having a meeting. And it was then that the customs officer called me in, and they took up my time for about 30 minutes until they were off their they were checking out at that time, and then they put another person on me who worked with me for another 2.5 hours. And at the end of the day, after taking fingerprints and signing all kinds of documentation, they said, you know, Garth, you're not allowed to enter for any business purposes into the US again until you have a working visa. And I said, well, why is this? Because according to NAFTA, it's okay that I come over just for meetings. And they said, no, at that time, I suppose the officer was having a mood swing or something. And they said, no, as the CEO, your face is selling your products in the US. And I said, well, our products are all in the US. There's nothing that we have that is part of Canada. And they said, it doesn't matter. As a Canadian, you're stealing somebody else's job. So you need to get a working visa. And they said it very kindly and nicely. So that really motivated me as they helped me turn around and go into Canada. And for the next year, I worked on a working visa myself and built this 3-inch thick document. And that's another story.
Wow. So you built this document and you got through. You DIY'd it yourself.
Yeah, there was some people along the way that I asked some questions of, that
Hmm.
people in the network, and then went to YVR. And let me just say that the land border crossings, there is nothing that would identify a person as special in crossing the land border. But if you go to an airport, like I did to YVR, Vancouver
Hmm.
Airport, there you've already bought a ticket. They already have your identification that way. You have a passport with you. And so there's a degree of respect already. And then when you bring the visa and show them all the information about yourself and your company, and you're fairly transparent or completely transparent,
Hmm.
they've got a lot to work on, and they've studied this and they've been trained on how to help people get into the US. So that was super helpful and very
Good.
rewarding. Even though it was a long experience, it was a great experience.
I'm so glad. I mean, you just given tips to our listeners about the difference between the border and the airports. And this is why when we have clients doing NAFTA L1s or NAFTA TN visas, we always suggest the airport first, mostly just because there's more experience. They're more experienced with professional business travelers like yourself, so that they know what you're trying to achieve and they can help facilitate. If you have the good intentions, you have the material you need, everything goes according to plan. So let's skip forward then, Garth, to when you and I met. I think it was in 2020. During COVID, we became friends during COVID, lots of Zoom. And you wanted to get an e visa for your business because, of course, you have no intention of moving to the States. You just want to be able to do business in the States and have your team do the same. So, how were we able to help you and how did you find us? I can't even recall now.
Oh, okay. Well, internally, I had written four more L visas for four different team members,
Hmm.
and there's an expiry date on those. So the first 3 years you have to go renew again, and then for 2 more years in succession, you have to get them renewed. Well, the 7 years was coming up, and
Mm.
so we needed to flip into another visa. So I started researching all kinds of attorneys and lawyers in immigration and calling them and looking at their podcasts and things like that. And once I had, honestly, Evelyn, when I had spoken with you, knowing that you had worked in multiple countries and that your company was built on people from immigrants from all over the world. Like you've done
Hmm.
an amazing job of education. And I really believe that if somebody knows how to educate a team, then they themselves will be able to help educate me as the customer. And then you connected me with this person down in California who was also an
Hmm.
attorney in immigration,
Yep.
and everything just seemed like you, as it were, spoke our language. And so was so glad that I connected with you. And then periodically you'd come over here to Vancouver so my wife and I could have dinner with you. And
Hmm.
so it's no, there was a sense of alignment, let's put it that way, both professionally and also as a friend. You're a happy person, and we may talk about this later, but that's really important in this life.
I agree. I really agree. I'm so excited that we have the opportunity. So we worked with you and one of our U.S. attorneys to get the first E for you. And as you may remember, it was the appointment date for the consular in Toronto was very, very long. Was that during, that was in the midst of COVID, right? It took something like, I don't know, how long was it? 8 months, 10 months, a
Yeah,
year?
we worked on it through 2020, and then in November of 2021, we flew out to Toronto, and I had the interview there at the U.S. Consular Office,
Hmm.
and you said, and the other attorney from the U.S. said,
Hmm.
Garth, you don't need to bring anything. We've sent them everything. They've got it all. But I brought a big stack of information so that in
Good.
case I was questioned, I would have the answer. And of course, they looked at me. You had done your job so perfectly, and I'm saying this, that's the truth. It was so perfect. They looked and said, "Oh, how's your day going? Good, good, good." A few more questions and signed off, and it was done. So that was great.
That's
And
what we
then
want. Yeah.
that became the anchor. And so from that point, whether it be people, somebody in Calgary or people out here in Vancouver, they've all been able to go to the local U.S. consular office
Hmm.
and get their e-visas. So that's been tremendous.
Oh, we're so happy we can help. Like this is exactly what I think NAFTA is about, is allowing the people who need to cross the border do their job and obviously create businesses and create jobs for Americans. We've also had the pleasure of working with you even for a green card sponsorship for one of your US employees. And so it's been a really wonderful partnership for us. Our firm loves working with you and talking to you and getting emails from you that are very interesting and humorous. Um, And it really is a breath of fresh air because we work so hard and we're dealing with bureaucracy, as you know, and consulates. And sometimes you lose the people aspect of the job. And you want to always keep that close in mind that these are people's lives and their businesses and their families. And so talking to you and connecting with you where you really appreciate what we do has just made this such a worthwhile relationship. And for me personally, meeting you and your wife and getting to you to know my husband and talking about life, especially during COVID when people were struggling and all of us were dealing with different challenges, it really was a lifesaver for me. I have to say that honestly. And I want to thank you for your friendship and your support. It means so much to me because, as I say to everybody, you are my favorite client. We have the same sense of humor, and so so let's talk a little bit about how your ability to cross the border right now with the E. How does that look on a monthly, quarterly basis? How often are you traveling or your people?
Well, it goes in waves depending upon trade shows and conferences and meetings. We have a Portland office, and so whenever I need to go down there into Portland, and for different people, there's always somebody traveling, and we have one person actually out of Calgary who's like a trade show conference warrior. She just shows up at all the shows, and she's amazing at doing business. And so for that individual, it's really, really important to be crossing on a regular basis, and even be to live down there for a month or two,
Hmm.
to make sure that she's connecting. And that e-visa provides all of that latitude to do all of that. It's really tremendous. And basically, that e-visa is actually amazing because as soon as you're crossing the border, land or through air, they look at it, the customs officer will look at it and they go, oh, it's an e-visa. It's almost like a sense of sophistication.
It
They
is.
kind of sign off and welcome you to the country, and it's such a good deal.
I think it's because, Garth, they know you're creating jobs for Americans because you're a business entry. So they know already that, wow. And the fact that you have to go through months and months and even your people months and months to get the visa, to get that appointment, they know that this is a legitimate entity and enterprise. So I'm really happy because it's a lot of work and you and your team give us so much information and it still takes time. And so I think getting it now and making life easier for everybody. Does your team, do they have Nexus passes too?
Um, Most of them do.
Good.
Not all of them for whatever reasons they
Hmm.
don't. But let me just say too that when crossing a border or working with immigration attorneys or whoever, I think you said it right earlier in that every person really matters. And I think that customs officers too, that how we respond to them. And if we're cold, they'll be cold back. It's like a mirror image.
Hmm.
And so
Hmm.
when we treat them with respect and ask them how their day is, and then respond when they ask us a question correctly, I think it really matters. I did a speech once
Yes.
called the humanification of data because we literally deal with billions and billions of data on the civilians of North America and especially
Hmm.
the US. And every point of data is so important because if you get hacked and they steal
Oh.
one thing, your license number, your license, your social security number, anything of your life, it feels terribly invasive. And
Hmm.
so the importance of treating people well really matters, including the billions of data that we process on a regular basis. It really, really matters to every single person.
I totally agree. I think when I prepare people to go to the port, I didn't have to do any prep for you or to go to the consulate because you're so sophisticated. You did your own L1 without me all those years. But it's always about being kind and being respectful and treating people. Even when as I always say, even when I travel, if I'm not dressed professionally, I'm wearing jeans and whatever because I travel usually quite comfortably and casually. And they'll question me, what do you do? I'm a lawyer. What kind of law? I'm an immigration lawyer. They look at me, they look up and down, and we usually have a chit chat and it's all about, yes, sir, yes, ma'am. I give them the respect that their position allows for so I can make my life easier. And the reason I was asking about the Nexus Pass is that you don't use that entry to get the first visa, like whether it's a TN or an L or an E. But once you have it, you can go through the Nexus line. And so
Yeah.
I really always encourage business professionals, like now it's even better. You don't have to take out your laptop. Like I was saying to my husband the other day, I traveled to Vegas for a conference and everything stayed on. I just put everything in. I didn't have to take out anything. And it just, within 2 minutes, I was done. And there was a line out the back. That probably would have been an hour and a half. So for business professionals like yourself, if you can get one, I highly recommend the Nexus Pass because it makes your life easier. You don't have to get to the airport so early and you just speed through immigration as well as the safety security line. So let me ask you a question. How do you think doing business in the US is different from doing business in Canada? Are there differences that you have experienced?
Yeah, now I've done business in various places in the world, and all I can tell you is there is no difference between doing business in my opinion, the differences, the gap between doing business in China or doing business in the US or business in Mexico or doing
Mm,
business in the US. It is so different. And I think 9/11 really changed a lot. And in
yes.
9/11 happened when it happened then 2001, but they didn't start changing Homeland Security policies until between 2007 and 2009. That's when the border got really thick, really high, and all the
Mm-hmm.
policies came into place at that time. And that was the reason why we had to completely do a makeover of our business if we wanted to continue to stay in business. And sort of I kind of led the charge in that one in setting up the company in the US and then hiring staff down there and making sure no data comes into Canada that's of the US. And there's just, when it came to our business, there are a lot of differences. And I think the main thing, again, it comes down to respect. They want to be respected in America
Mm-hmm.
for who they are as an independent individual company. And as in Canada too, Canada is very different. And a lot of American companies want to start businesses in Canada to say, whoa, we've got a business in Canada. The problem is they don't count the people. They don't understand that 40 million people is a tenth basically of
Yes.
America. And so when they come up to Canada, all of a sudden they're disappointed and they think that their investment has failed because there's just not the same population base in different industry sectors. Now, do we have the natural all of the oil and the gold and all of the amazing commodities that we offer? Yes. So there's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
reasons why corporations come up here. But it's often a disappointment when they start to deal with the people. Meanwhile, when we start in a business in the US, the volume of people just changes everything. Now, that's
Yes.
because of the economy there. I mean, I've also started business in China, and the volume of the people doesn't really have to do with the economy per se, because a lot of those people are in places where there is not, it's kind of third world in some places in China.
Mm-hmm.
So it's every country has to be taken on its own merit and a lot of research done. And before people say, every country I've gone into, I failed the first year. Well, that's because you need to plan, or I needed to plan
Yes.
at least a 2 year sort of journey to even before we get traction in the country.
Oh, I love that. You've given really good advice to like new business owners, and some of them come to us and they're just thinking about expanding. Um, those are all really good, valuable tips, Garth. What do you think about um, what kind of tips would you give somebody moving to the US to do business? Like if I sent you one of our newer clients who had a successful Canadian business, maybe, and now they're like looking south because there are people looking south to Texas, to Denver, to, Phoenix. We're seeing a lot more of that look over the border to dip your toe and think about it. How do you think they should prepare for that transition doing business in the States?
Well, a few points, I guess. First of all, every state runs business differently than the next state. They're like independent countries. And so a person has to prepare for all the rules that are different from state to state. I think
Mm-hmm.
that it's also important to understand that when a person is going into the US, the Canadian government has Export Development Canada. And Export Development Canada can come alongside because their job is to promote foreign enterprise. And they can come alongside and counsel, advise, provide financial security, and even as access to cash if needs be, depending upon the project that's going on in the US. And I think that that's really important to understand that in that area with Canada, it is head and shoulders above probably any other country in the world when
Hmm.
it comes to foreign investment and finding the counsel that we pay for anyway with our taxes. So why
Yep.
not find that counsel in Export Development Canada? And I think the other thing is it's a who you know world, and the network really matters. And trust has to happen. And so if you're dealing with somebody and you trust them and you've only met them twice or you've been doing some business, get out there and get some references. Make sure you can trust that person a lot. Make sure
Hmm.
they are industry leaders. I have crossed the border many times just to meet with an industry leader just for breakfast and then flown
Hmm.
back when finances are tight just to build a network with people that I know will provide the right connections with us.
Oh, I
So
love
those
that. Those are really valuable. I mean, I think sometimes the face to face. I remember when I worked in Toronto at Ernst and Young, and I'd come out to Calgary back in like 2000, 2001, 2002. What I really liked about it before I moved here was you would meet face to face, have a lunch, done. And there's something about you don't have to spend months and months for the RFP. You would just have that, you'd have that prep, you'd get there, you'd talk to them, you show them who you that you were, and you'd learn about who they were. And if it felt right, you shook hands and that was it. And for me, that just like you, there's so much value in that experience of authenticity and connection. And I think that people sometimes don't think about that when they're making hiring decisions or expansion decisions, is who's in your network, who can you trust, who will vouch for you. And I mean, you basically participating in this podcast gives me so much confidence because you're basically vouching for me and the firm and our wonderful team, and sharing your experience as a client of our firm and how we want to do business with more people, like yourself, educated professionals, sophisticated business owners who don't want the border to stop them from growing and being successful. So why don't we switch to another part of our relationship? I would love to talk to you about why you think you and I both being happy people um, impacts our lives and makes us successful. What do you think that's about?
well, let me get let me start on the emotion side first.
Okay.
Nobody cares about how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah.
And if you give to get to give, if you're not giving, if you're not sharing, if you're not open and transparent with people, people can read through that nowadays like crazy. I mean, it's so
Mm-hmm.
fast. And Howard Schultz, the president and CEO, founder of Starbucks, once said, he said, after all of the investments he's done and all the paperwork and documents he's had to look through, he says, sincerity is more powerful than a business plan. And so it's really important to work on oneself, and that creates and generates the happiness that matters. Secondly, from a scientific point of view, and I sound very analytical
No,
how I'm
I love
explaining
that.
this, but I'm doing just conversing, and this is how I talk about this because it's so important. I studied neurology for many, many years, and I can tell you this, that the mechanics of the brain, the way the brain works, and that is positive information. People who are helpful that we surround ourselves with, a network of people who have been there, done that. The research that we do, finding solutions for other people and helping other people.
Hmm.
This literally builds the infrastructure around our neurons to make us stronger, better, happier people. It literally builds the myelin around the neurons without
Wow.
getting too deep, that makes us better people and healthier people. And so I think that it's really important to, plus then it goes to whoever it was, Dale Carnegie or whoever. It's
Hmm.
the books you read and the people you surround yourself with. It really matters to work through every issue. We all have issues. We all have
Yes.
baggage. We all have past, and we're going to have a
Yes.
future. And so it's so important to have an attitude saying, you know what? We're building a network of people, and we are prepared to do the work to continue to have a life that has deep meaning to it.
I love that. And I think just even from our first meeting and our first Zoom and our first discussions, I got that sense from you that you had been somebody who had done that deep work, and as somebody who is a little bit younger than you, just a tiny bit, I feel, I really appreciate the mentorship. And even I've had to do this work. I'm reading constantly. I'm looking at how we can improve personally, professionally, as a family. And I think talking to you really just solidified for me the importance of doing that hard work and to create the life you want from a place of joy and happiness, as opposed to bringing negativity and suspicion, but instead that open-hearted way of being. And whether it's a spiritual way of being or some other way that it comes across, it absolutely comes across about your integrity, and your need to connect, as opposed to have these superficial level relationships. Like me, I don't like chit chat. um, I like to just get right to the heart of it, and to also talk truthfully and openly. And and I think as you said, the authenticity and even just the caring for our clients. Um, the other day I was working from home. My husband was like, "My goodness, you sound like a therapist," because these days people are struggling, right? No matter if you're a business person or a family member trying to sponsor somebody, people are dealing with the impact of COVID, and they're dealing with technology, and they're dealing with economy and interest rates and whatever, whatever. And I feel like people are struggling more. So my job has turned into more, I would think, of counseling, listening, more so even than it was before COVID. And that's something I try to remind my team, is that we have to always be thinking, you don't know what the other person is living through. You don't know what's on their end. So if there's frustration and stress, you need to really come from a place of empathy, because people are living challenging lives right now. And so it's nice when I can work with somebody like you, who's happy, who's appreciative, who has a sense of gratitude for the entire team. It makes us all want to do more and do better. So I just want to thank you for that, Garth. It means a lot.
Thanks, Evelyn. Well, and likewise, I think about your business and our business. So the law and data, very
Yeah.
analytical.
Hmm.
And truth is intention with kindness. Here's the truth. Here's the law. Here's the truth to our team. We have to put in the hours. We have to put in the work. But here's the kindness. Let's be kind to each other. Let's always communicate. It's hard sometimes to be kind and tell the truth. Sometimes it's hard to tell the truth and be kind. But let's work at those two things so that
Hmm.
our corporate culture is productive and a place where we want to be, because that'll help generate tenure with the staff and also,
Yes.
job satisfaction. And it flows over to the customers and suppliers and everybody that we work with. It is not easy, but truth and kindness really matter.
I totally agree. How would you, what are some of your tips? Because I've come to you before, when things were slower during COVID and just trying to like keep busy. What do you consider a really good retention strategy for your team? Because you've built this incredible team of people. I've met some of them and worked with some of them. How do you keep them incentivized and engaged?
Well, that's a really important question, and every company is different. So
Hmm.
all I can tell you is after working for various companies, we've created a system here at Pacific East that for us it works, but I'm not saying
Yeah,
that that's transferable to others.
for
But we
sure.
basically took away all commissions for salespeople so that the technical people did not feel like they were lesser than the salespeople,
Hmm.
because in technology, it takes a team to make every single sale. It takes a
Hmm.
team to maintain every single customer. And so,
Yeah,
but in doing that, we created a gain sharing bonus that is determined by the success of the company, that everybody gets the same amount,
great.
maybe 3 or 4 times a year. And then also performance bonus that people are rewarded over and above what they would when they're doing work over and above what they would normally do, and they're
Hmm.
rewarded for that. And then there's other benefits that we've got to add. We've got to look into health benefits. What are some of the things that we can do to add to the health benefit package that we have? Some cash
Hmm.
in the bank where people can apply it to other things. We've got to make sure that people, if somebody passes away in their family, that it's not just according to BC employment laws that they get the three
No.
days off or whatever it is, but
Oh.
they get the time they need to heal so that when they come back to work, they're better. Or, sometimes a furnace doesn't work and we find a way. I believe it's our privilege as owners to find a way to make our team feel secure in the job they're at. It's never
Hmm.
perfect. And yes, we
Yes.
make mistakes, but all I'm saying is that to have that intention, it begins to flow over. And then there's times where the owners just have to fall on their sword and sacrifice. And that's just the way it is. That's the privilege of ownership. But there's a few ideas.
The privilege of ownership. I like how you say that. Sometimes it's the privilege and a burden, right? Because I feel like I think those are all great ideas, and we do that. I think incentivizing for success, everybody on the team is important. We do that too. Um, and recognition of bonuses and all of that. So, and we even have, we're focusing on having fun. At least those of us in the physical office, we go to theater, we go to dinner, we spend time together with each other and our families. I just came back from the National Immigration Lawyers Conference and took my senior paralegal as a reward and benefit for her outstanding work. And it was really a big deal because most lawyers don't bring their paralegals with them to a lawyers conference. So it was great. And I don't know if you saw, but I went to the Philippines. So for me,
Oh, no, didn't know.
you don't follow me on social media, Garth. I'm just teasing.
I'm
Um,
paranoid because of the industry we're in. I'm
I
paranoid.
know you're in the paranoid industry. Yeah, I just decided, the kids were in Vancouver for spring break, and Howard and I just thought this is the perfect time. And I wanted to go because we do, as you know, have a remote virtual assistant team in the Philippines, as well as other countries that are international. And we just thought, let's go. So we went for 10 days. And that
Wow.
level of time with them, we took them to the beach, we flew to different islands. They just had the most incredible time, and we had the best time with them. But it was nice to have that physical time together to eat and drink and play in the ocean and do stuff together and retreat. We did meetings. But for me, some of them have been with us for 3.5 years. Riza Lee has been with me, and I never met her and in person. And so it was really valuable. And
Wow.
they just were like, we're committed for life because nobody else's boss from abroad is coming, they don't meet. And sometimes some of them have never even met each other because they live in very far regions of the Philippines. So we brought them all together and it was really exciting. So anyway, that was my
Yeah,
highlight.
when hard times come and they come in these waves every 5 to 8 years, the
Yes.
economy for whatever reason fails or there's wars or whatever kind of things, the
Hmm.
relationships that we strike up face to face when we see
Yeah.
people, those are the relationships that stick, and that goes especially for customers and suppliers. They
Hmm.
will go for they'll pay a higher price if you know the name of their dog and
Yes.
genuinely can care about their children and their families and their
Yes.
workplace. And when they see that, tough times come and they go, you know what? I know who's going to actually be thinking about me during this time versus maybe the big bully corporation over
Yes.
there. So just a
Absolutely.
thought.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I agree. And it was worth it. And, those are the investments we make to keep people happy and build a positive team. So, I mean, I really am so grateful to you, Garth, because you have given us your time and you've also given us your knowledge. I know how busy you are and all the things you do when you're not working because you hike, you fish, you run, you go to the gym, you do all these things. How are you finding the time to do all that? I know your kids are older now, but I struggle with that. I just came back from my gym, but how does that impact you and your effectiveness, you think, as a leader to have that level of physicality, whether it's kayaking or being on your boat? How does that impact your success with your business?
Well, I think it's important that just like they say on the airplane, put your mask on first. I've had those times in life where I haven't been healthy because I did not take care of myself. I just worked all the time, and
Mm-hmm.
those are like it's tough discipline to all of a sudden look in the doctor's eyes and he says to you, you may not have much time left because of this or that happening in your body. Well, what do I need to change? And they say, well, you need to change your nutrition, you need to change your exercise, and so we make a change. And so
Mm-hmm.
whether it means just an hour a day, 1 hour for 24 hours, I'll be a
Mm-hmm.
better person or possibly have a better quality of life. I think that's sort of the important thing. And I'm not a good example when it comes to taking vacations. I'm really lousy at taking vacations and just taking time off. I love British Columbia, and so for me, just to wander around here is almost good enough. But I'm trying to put a plan together for 2024 and 2025, and
Good.
my wife is helping. But
Good.
I'd say that it's really important to at least all of these things, whether it be corporate culture or personal well-being, that we're always
Mm-hmm.
looking at these things and including our faith and making sure that we're
Yes.
always nurturing ourselves and growing in our minds and growing in our bodies and growing in our
Mm-hmm.
faith so that we could be people that actually have something to offer possibly to someone when they come along.
And the work is not everything. When you're a business owner, you're always thinking about work, even when you're not at work, right? It's in your head. I think the exercise, like I just did, really helps to just kind of clear that, and you're not able to think about business really because you're busy being physical. Um, and I think too, focusing on health, is really important. I just got a call yesterday, and this is very true, from a lawyer in BC who is wrapping up his practice and wanting to refer some files that are clients' ease in particular, because he has terminal cancer and was just
Mm,
diagnosed. And when you get those calls, or you get that, like, it just puts everything into perspective, right? That
yeah.
work is work and life is life. And it's nice if you can integrate them, but that work is not life. And it just was a really good reminder of that yesterday, that we need to take care of ourselves and each other. So I would like to
Mm,
thank you so much, Garth, for giving me your time on our podcast, for being a fabulous client, and for
mm.
sharing your wisdom and knowledge with me over the last 4 years. It truly has been my pleasure and a blessing to me and my family. And I want to wish you and your beautiful family all the best as well. Until I see you next time, hopefully in Vancouver. I'll be there this summer. Thank you.
Okay, well, let me just say about Ackah Law and Evelyn, your leadership. You are a woman to be watched, and I'm not just saying that because that's been in a magazine. I'm saying that you're an amazing woman to be watched, and the way you work internationally with people, and the way you care, and your incredible ability to do both administrative and to be relational work is just outstanding. And so we have not had a bad moment working with you and Ackah Law, the whole team. Seriously, it's been so
Oh,
good. So thank you so much.
thank you for saying that. I really appreciate you and everything you do. Until next time, thank you all for joining me on the Ask Canada Immigration Lawyer podcast. If you have any questions, feel free to call our firm, and please share our podcast with your friends and family. Take care.